Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another wonderful event with the Virtual Tasting Society. I'm Jan Kilkenny, subbing in for Vadim Perlovsky. Tonight, we're joined by James Kilgannon, the Global Brand Ambassador for Writers Tears, and Hunter Leese will be joining us at some point this evening as well. Please remember to keep yourself on mute unless you want to ask a question. Feel free to toss things in the chat. Once we get started, we're here to get nerdy and learn things. So everybody please participate. And with that, James, please introduce yourself and tell us all about what's going on.
No, thank you. No, really appreciate it, and thank you for having me on. I suppose, yeah, a little intro about me. So, my name is James. I am the global brand manager, and then also subbing in as global brand ambassador for Writers Tears and the Irishman whiskey. So, my job is to go to silly places like Japan, where I am now, and travel the world and kind of spread the word of our product, but then also the very boring stuff like do the labels, make sure that the regulatory behind all that is good. And yeah, no, we always really appreciate any time that we're doing a tasting with people and getting like feedback and just seeing our product internationally. So I see Hunter's joining now.
Yeah,
Hey Hunter,
James, were you able to hop on there?
I
How are you?
finally I finally managed to get onto this.
Yeah, fair enough. Glad to hear it. Let's see. I'm just blowing this up. Sorry, everybody, for some issues here, but I'll let you keep going. Sorry, James.
But yeah, so no, we really, really appreciate any of these tastings, and we did a lot of whiskey tastings internationally. So for us, it's always good insight into basically how the whiskey is being perceived, what people think about it, how do people enjoy it, and that because we're a very, very small team at Walsh Whiskey and Riders Tears and Irishman. So when we do these type of events and people give our feedback, we can go back to the warehouse and we can kind of have a good think and see how we can kind of evolve the next batches. So I've been with Riders Tears and Irishman for a year and a half. And then before that, I was with a little known company called Teeling Whiskey for about 5 years. And then I was with a even smaller known company called Jameson before that. So I suppose during my whiskey career, I've been going through to smaller and smaller brands in terms of yeah, how much we're selling, but focusing on trying to work with companies that have a huge amount of innovation and experimentation going on in the range. Before that, though, I was not a whiskey person, as in I enjoyed whiskey. My background is actually in geology. So prior to working in the whiskey industry, I was actually a geologist. So I'd travel around Sweden and Siberia and Lapland and map rocks. So I changed traveling for mapping to traveling and for talking about the whiskies. But yeah, you guys have an absolutely incredible lineup today going through some of our limited editions. So yeah, I'm interested to see what you guys think of the range and kind of how they compare and contrast.
Do you have an order you'd like us to set the tastings up in? Several of us have more than one glass available, so.
Oh, nice, nice. So for me, I would say start on the single pot still. So the single pot still, I would say, is the best whiskey actually start the tasting with, just because for the Riders Tiers range, does anybody know our Irishman range as well? So we've two ranges of whiskey where the Irishman range is all focused on single malt. It's celebrating Irish single malt and triple distilled Irish malt, but it would be a lot more traditional. So it would be a lot more kind of, I would say, what you'd expect from whiskey, where Riders Tears is going to be celebrating that link between the fact that Irish literature writers and Irish kind of poets and playwrights like John B. Keane and Oscar Wilde, James Joyce, Patrick Kavanagh, that a lot of the bars that they drank in were whiskey bars. So if you come to Ireland, you have the Palace Bar, you have Bowes, a lot of them are big literature and journalist bars, but also happen to be big whiskey bars. So the Riders Tears range celebrates that, but it's going to have a lot more creativity because of that. So we're going to kind of look to what would have Riders done. They would have played around with different casts, different flavors, and see how we can apply that to the brand. So in the Riders Tears range, I suppose our intro into our innovation series is the Copper Pot would be like the intro to the range, but the single pot still is the whiskey that kind of builds the foundation of everything that we do in our, how would you say, our kind of LTD, our limited edition range. So I definitely say the single pot still for us represents everything that we do as a company.
Just
And I think,
sorry to interrupt, James. Just real quick, let's get the just so people can we just walk through the tasting order.
yeah,
So single pot still you said, did you want to do the tequila cask right after that? Just to kind of since that's the base liquid for it or no?
yeah, I think let's do the single pot still, then the tequila cask, and then we have
Ice
ice wine.
wine, Marsala,
Yeah,
Japanese, and then
yeah,
2023 cask strength.
yeah. The ice wine, Marsala will move to the ice wine, the Marsala, the Mizunora, and then we can do the cast rent at the end because nobody wants to start on a cast rent ever.
Well, in the Japanese cask is cask strength too, so you could go
Yeah,
up to you if you could do either one. So,
yeah.
whatever you think there.
So for me, I suppose we have a lot of whiskeys to go through. And kind of going into the range, our big thing was we want to celebrate single pot still. And we also want more people drinking single pot stills. So the big challenge in the world is that a lot of people want to get into the world of single malts and single pot still, but we have to be honest about how the world looks at whiskey. And if we're going to be kind of perfectly honest, the whole world looks at Irish whiskey through Jameson. And then the majority of people look at the global whiskey world through Jameson. They look at Tullamore Dew or Johnny Walker, Bushmills, Famous Grouse, Jim Beam, Jack Daniels. So people can drink, you would say your blended whiskey. They can drink your smoother, more easier, approachable volume whiskey, but they want to drink Redbreast. They want to drink Rider's Tears. They want to drink the kind of stronger single pot stills. But we've kind of looked at it and gone, a huge amount of people make that jump and they go, that's too strong for me. We all know someone who you offered them a whiskey and they go, no, I had a whiskey 5, 10 years ago and it was far too strong, it was too aggressive, and it just didn't it kind of they make that jump and then they never make that jump again. It's too strong. People like myself are the people who tried the single pot still and went, yes, that's perfect, and I made a career out of it. So for us, the Riders Tears range, we try to bring more people into drinking Irish single pot still. So Copper Pot was the perfect, I would say, stepping stone into the world of that. So we had a good success with Copper Pot internationally in the US, in Europe, in Canada, but we needed a full single pot still. So we needed something to go against the likes of Redbreast. So for my job across the world, when I'm talking about Riders Tears, everybody goes to me and says, "How does this compare to how does this compare to like Redbreast 12, or how does it compare to Powers?" Because that's what people know. So we need to bring a single
Uh,
pot.
Sorry to jump in here, James. Just to call out, I actually only realized now if people have the labels. I didn't realize this part now, but it is a James Joyce quote. But I forgot that Bloomsday is coming up too. So
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
as far as it goes, like all of us gathered here, Bloomsday is on June 16th, which is a celebration of James Joyce and his kind of magnum opus, which is God, it's a take on what the Odyssey, right? And it's called
Yeah.
What is it called? Why can't I find it in my brain?
No,
Kilgannon,
we have
right?
we have Ulysses, and then we have like James Joyce's biggest, I suppose, works would be called Ulysses, which is one of
Ulysses. It's Ulysses. Yeah,
the
yeah, sorry.
which is one of the most difficult books ever to read. And then we have the Dubliners as well, which is I actually live next door to where the Dubliners is set in James Joyce's book. We are currently sponsoring Bloomsday in Dublin. So if you look at the Bloomsday Film Festival, Writers Fest, and the kind of artwork that's done at the moment all across Dublin to celebrate James Joyce, we are the key sponsor of that. It's the joy of being called Writer's Tears and celebrating James Joyce and Oscar Wilde is you get to sponsor a lot of, say, writing festivals and the celebrations of old Irish literature.
Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in there. I was looking at the bottle and I just before it popped out of my brain, I wanted to just call that out. So just kind of happy Bloomsday, everybody, as we're tasting through this. Um, let's see. Someone had a question, by the way, just
Yep.
how to compare copper pot to single pot.
Yeah, so I was actually literally just about to get onto that. So for Copper Pot was our kind of introduction into the world of single pot still. It's if you're a massive Redbreast fan or you're a massive single pot still fan, you will like Copper Pot. And it's easy for me out of our whole range. Copper Pot is actually my favorite because nobody wants to drink like five or six single pot stills back to back. But Copper Pot still, you can. You can tip away on it. It's approachable. It gets more people into single pot still. So our core single pot still, I suppose that was our I would say keep converting people from the likes of Redbreast and kind of powers and the spot range. It was also looking at how do we bring something different and something new. Um, uh, I'm just reading the thing there while we were waiting. I started on my copper pot. Yep, that was brilliant. So for us, our single pot still, we were trying to bring some new flavors into single pot still whiskey. So when you're making a product, I suppose everybody bases you from the most successful single pot still that's on the market. So people are going to compare us to Redbreast. And when you're looking at a lot of single pot stills, they tend to be very, very wintry. So you're looking at like your sherry flavors, your you would say your Christmas flavors, your spices, your kind of dried fruits, and that's what a lot of people expect from single pot still whiskey. But there's no point in us doing the same thing. We could have released a single pot still and put it into a sherry cask and released it, and it would have been similar to Redbreast, but it's not something that we can own. We're never gonna we're never gonna be able to take all of Redbreast sales or Power sales. So for us, we want to look at see how we can bring in new flavors. So our single pot still, what we've done is we've initially aged it in bourbon. It's about 5 years in bourbon. And that is to give a level of familiarity. It's to give a foundation that we can overlay flavor. But it means that each and every one of you, when you bring this up, it's been aged in bourbon cask, the most common cask in the world. You're going to get vanilla, honey, caramel, your traditional whiskey flavors. If you're ever stuck on a whiskey tasting, just say vanilla, honey, caramel. It will tick the box for 90% of all flavors that you're going to get in whiskey. My job in marketing, I suppose, is saying vanilla in maybe 15 different ways. You have butterscotch, you have toffee, there's a lot of ways to do it. But bourbon casks are great to give familiarity and give a foundation that you can overlay flavor. So after that, what we do is we transfer it over to two different varieties of casks. They are Pedro Ximénez sherry casks. And the reason for the PX sherry cask is again familiarity. It means that when you pick up this whiskey, you're going to get what you would expect from a single pot still. You're going to get those stone fruits, you're going to get the dried fruits, you're going to get the spice, but it doesn't make up the kind of the bulk of the liquid when we're making it. So with the Writer's Tears range, we try to look at our flavors from kind of springtime, summertime perspective. A lot of whiskey tends to be very wintry, so we looking to bring in like newer, fresher, springtime, summertime flavors to kind of show that whiskey doesn't actually have to be November, December, January. That people can drink whiskey in how we are in June, July, and August. That there is springtime and summertime flavors. So what we've done is we've matured it for just over a year in the Italian Marsala casks. So the bulk of that batch between PX and Marsala, the bulk would be Marsala in there. And what you get from it is you get a huge amount of apricots, you get a huge amount of peaches, you get a massive amount of kind of what you say fleshy fruits for me personally. And you get this background of just slightly dry nuttiness on the palate as well. But it's really the fruits that complement it really well. And from a single pot still directive, I suppose as well, is pot still tends to be really, really spicy. It becomes really, really oily just because of that unmalted barley. The sweetness of Marsala kind of tames down the spice a little bit. It doesn't allow it to be too overpowering and too powerful.
I do think this is one of my favorite whiskeys in kind of the lineup, especially of the recent entrants. All those things you said about all those cast finishes, and I definitely get all that. But for me, tasting a lot of different pot still whiskeys out there, I think it does do a nice job of telling a true like actual spirit story of what pot still is too. You get all those kind of lovely, cask aspects, but part of it too is like it reminds me of my beer days when we were tasting different kind of types of barley, different malted barley, and taking kind of some of that and putting it in your hand. It tastes to me and has almost like the texture of like chewing on some actual barley. And again, that goes back to the unmalted barley kind of aspect coming into single pot still. But and it almost does have that kind of chewiness to it, which I think again Redbreast, we talked a lot about that, not to distract, but I don't think you necessarily get as much of that, especially in the 12 year. The cast strength, you get a bit more of that coming through. But for me, I think this has a really kind of more transparent view to what makes pot still spirit, before it goes in a barrel itself. So I definitely, again, I definitely get some of that, which is part of the reason I love it. To that end too. So that's just while I'm here, I might as well give my
Oh
input
no,
as well.
brilliant.
So
No, and I suppose for us, for like as in getting feedback from people and their opinions is absolutely fantastic. Because I suppose for us, I experience pot still in my own way. So for me, the big kind of signifier for single pot still is, do you ever have a black pepper grinder and it's gone a little bit dull? So when you're eating your dish, you kind of get like a big chunk of black pepper and in your food, and you just get that really tip of the tongue, dry black pepper spice. For me, that is what single pot still is. I get that chewiness that Hunter talked about, that oiliness, like always with a single pot still slosh it around a lot in your mouth, really get into the texture of the whiskey, not just flavors. But the big tasting note for me is that black pepper tip of the tongue spice that really signifies unmalted barley. And I suppose from a yield and production standpoint, Irish like single pot still is always going to be more expensive. It's always going to be that extra bit expensive because predominantly it's always going to be triple distilled. In our version, it's triple distilled, so you're going to have that extra step of distillation, which adds in a cost for when we make it. But we're also putting in a large proportion of the batch, which doesn't it adds a little bit of alcohol yield to our batch, but it doesn't, not to the level of what you'd get from single malt. We're putting in something that's solely included for flavor, included for that oily, spicy flavor that it brings. And I know it's easy, I suppose, when we talk about single pot still, we end up talking about Redbreast a lot, and the reason for that is simply everyone knows it, and also it's the number one kind of single pot still whiskey internationally, and they're a company as well who's been flying the flag for single pot still internationally for many years. So what we're trying to bring in, the likes of Dingle and Clonakilty and Teeling, is we're trying to bring in the kind of next wave of single pot still and kind of bring in new flavors to it. Just catching up.
I was sorry to jump in, James, but I know like as general consumers, people a lot of times have always looked at Irish whiskey through the lens of triple distillation, lending themselves to the idea that again, I will blame Jameson or even more so Patty's or something like that for this, but that triple distillation makes it less than. I think actually, and this is just my personal perception. I think if I haven't had, well, I guess Kilgannon does a double distilled pot still, and that's a lovely example too. But I do think that the triple distillation somewhat helps counterbalance some of that like kind of more oiliness that comes with just the natural distillation of pot still, and it kind of gives a counterweight to what the spirit that's coming out within single pot still provides. And I actually, again, I take that as kind of a nice. But it's not only differentiator within Irish whiskey versus your single malts out of Scotland or American whiskeys, but it provides kind of an extra layer where you're taking this very kind of rich and full flavor and really heavily coating spirit and making it again maybe a bit more easy to drink, I would say, lovely to drink, and in a really nice way. I forget who said it. I think it was an Irish distiller, um, not at IDL, but just I don't remember specifically, but probably some down there at Milton. But someone was talking about triple distillation, and more or less the answer was you don't want to fight with your whiskey as it's going down. You should be able to enjoy it, and that's kind of the idea there.
Yeah,
Is what I took from there. So.
no, 100%. Like you do get, and I suppose I work in a lot of Scotch dominated markets, so I'd be the only person at an event with triple distilled and Irish product, and I'm standing beside Macallan or Dalmore or like your big established Scotch houses. And that triple distilled does come up a lot where people kind of say, yeah, it breaks down a lot of flavors, you lose a lot, but less is more. Sometimes it's easier. Like no one ever puts a handful of salt into their dish. You put a pinch of salt in.
Speak for
So
yourself.
yeah, yeah, it depends. Yeah. My partner's French, so yeah, no, I'm well used to a lot of salt. But no, but less is more. It's like sometimes the less flavor you have, the more you can appreciate the flavors that's in there. You can kind of journey around a bit. So when you're double distilling with the likes of pot still, you're gonna get those unmalted barley and oiliness from a double distilled pot still, but you're also gonna have your big heavy flavors as well, your leather, chocolate, tobacco, earthy flavors, and they're very, very big molecules. So when we do that extra step of distillation, you break down some of those bigger, heavier flavors. Not all of them, but enough to allow lighter, fruitier flavors to come through. And you'll get that across all Irish whiskey, not just pot still, but blends and single malts. All of the triple distilled whiskies will tend to be fruity on the nose. And that's that triple distilled note coming through. Those apple and pear notes or smoked pineapple notes, they're not going to be able to have their stage, so to say, in a double distilled spirit, but they do have that opportunity with a triple distilled. Do people
Do
get?
people know where you're calling? Sorry, go for it. Sorry,
Yeah,
James.
I was just gonna say, can people get those peaches and apricots on the nose? For me, that's one of the big dominant notes. We've a yogurt in Ireland called Petit Filou. It means little rascal in French. It's a little kind of baby kid yogurt. Every Irish child knows it because we were basically reared on it, raised on it, and given it during lunch. But that has a lovely creaminess to it, and there it has peaches and apricots. So for me, I suppose we all find different flavors in whiskey. For me, this is what highlights it for me, that apricot, and it's very fleshy. Like it's not just an essence of apricot. You're really getting the actual notes, as in it feels like the actual fruit. As someone does get the apricot, yeah, and peaches. Now, like if you've never had a peach in your life, you're not going to get peach on this because you don't know what it tastes like. Like I put papaya sometimes as a tasting note. I've never had a papaya, and it just looks good on a tasting thing. But we don't do anything. We don't do that with any of our riders steers. We keep the tasting notes quite simple.
Oh, I was going to ask, did you tell people where you're calling in from today?
Yeah, I'm in Osaka, Japan. So was in Tokyo 2 days ago, in Osaka, going to Kyoto later, and then going back to Tokyo. So I have a very, very hard life, as you can imagine.
Well, with that, the reason I brought that up is I obviously knew the answer. But I do appreciate, Japanese whiskey partially because it has a really nice nuance to it. It's a bit more subtle, I would say, than especially some of American whiskeys. And I think, a lot of ways you can get some of that nuance, especially with that pot still. Again, some of the cast finishes are a bit more punchy. It's a bit more, I would say, what the American consumer likes and expects on that front. But I do think the pot still, with all the different casts and stuff, does have a level of nuance to it. That is quite nice. It's not quite as subtle as maybe some Japanese whiskeys out there, but I would say for Irish whiskey, it tends to head that direction. That just kind of popped in my head when you're talking through the kind of tasty notes there. So.
Yeah, and it's Irish whiskey will always appeal to Japanese drinkers, and if you're a fan of Japanese whiskey, Irish whiskey will. There's we have, but we both have the provenance, we both have the heritage, we both have the attention to detail and focusing on, I would say, smaller flavors. The not big, punchy, loud flavors that you would get in the likes of Ardbeg, Lagavulin, and kind of your double distilled Scotch. And I'm going to allude to a lot of Scotches through this, but don't please don't misunderstand me. I am a massive Scotch whiskey fan. I love your big Ardbegs, your Lagavulins, your Lefroys. They're some of my favorite whiskies. It's when we're going through our whiskies, I suppose it's the only way that we're going to be able to understand what one of our products tastes like is comparing it to something else. And a lot of the time we compare it to different products that most people would know. And I'm looking behind, and a few people have some very, very nice whiskey collections behind them. So quite impressive. It's very good. But yeah, the single pot still. I suppose this came from one of our limited editions, the kind of inspiration for it, but it was originally done kind of as a smaller release, a limited release. But for us now, this is a core product in our range, and it's something that we're going to continue making and evolving it. So our core range would be the copper pot, just to kind of bring people into the whiskey category, kind of sitting just above Jameson, so people can start on the blended whiskies and jump up into your more premium single pot still whiskies. Then the double oak being the elevation of copper pot aged in cognac casks, and then the single pot stills. So if you follow us on social media, whenever I get the time to actually put up a post on our social media, you're going to see me always posting on the single pot still, the copper pot, and the double oak. I'm trying to think, Hunter, price points in the US. I can't remember.
It's
I can't.
about $10 up the ladder. Most people here, like we've done copper
Yeah,
pot, double oak. Most of the folks have been on here just to give some context, and we've obviously kind of walked through it. One of the reasons we do all these fun casts is number one, I think we've done the Japanese cast one or two times before with a good portion of this group, because it's always a favorite. But people are very familiar with those two whiskeys. But as far as the price in the U.S., you sit about, call it just under 50 for a copper pot,
yeah,
and then $10 for each step. So double oak another 10, single pot still another 10 roughly. It might be, $5 plus or minus here and there, depending on the
yeah.
market, but in general that's about kind of where we sit. So you're looking at the single pot still between 60 and $80, I would say.
Nice,
Or,
nice.
sorry, but between 70 and $80, my bad.
Okay.
You want
So
to jump into the tequila cask while we're still talking pot still?
yeah, no,
If people want
absolutely.
to,
I see a question there just on the redhead. The redhead for us, I suppose we're looking at the redhead and it's a beautiful liquid. We have the Riders Tears range all about pot still, and we have the Irishman range all about single malt. But we have this strange single malt sitting in the Riders Tears range. So the plan for the redhead is to kind of discontinue it or reassess it down the line. So it's a lovely liquid, but I suppose it doesn't fit well in the Riders Tears range, and we need a liquid. However, I will say to you that when we say we're going to do anything in the whiskey industry, it usually takes about a decade. So we have probably enough bottles, labels, caps, everything of the redhead to keep us going for a good long while. And before we kind of reassess it, we of course are going to make sure that we sell every single label, every single cap, every single cork. So it won't, we're looking at it of how does it fit into the Riders Tiers range, and it doesn't really at the moment, apart from just being nice. So the plan is to kind of move it over to the Irishman range, but you're looking at maybe 5 to 10 years down the line. Uh, so, um, so the tequila cask. So this is this is a weird one, and I suppose for the last 3 days for me over here, this has been the kind of fastest moving, the biggest attention that we've gotten over here in Japan, and internationally as well. It's absolutely flying, um, not just for the I suppose the label, the packaging of it, really, really vibrant packaging. So when it's on the back of our
I have a
bottle,
nice example here for you if you'd like. Um,
yeah, I think I
as
have
long as
one
it
here.
doesn't get blurred out.
Yeah, I think I have one here as well. I think, or is it over here? Oh yeah, it's very, very nice. Really vibrant packaging,
Hey,
and
Jane.
it jumps out a lot. So this is continuing on. I would say bringing in those springtime, summertime flavors into Irish whiskey. So the tequila cask uh, kind of really brings different and new elements into the Irish whiskey category. There's a lot of people with tequila casks out there. There's a lot of brands, both in Scottish, both in Irish, and both in Japanese, who have 15, 20, 30, 50 casks of tequila. And they're just aging it and they haven't released it. The only releases that have really come out are Dewars did a little bit, Teeling did a little bit, JJ Curry did a single cask, Two Stacks did a single cask. We did a massive batch of tequila casks, so we're probably the largest tequila cask release out there. So as part of our
It was
company,
probably the first in the US, wasn't it?
I think Dewars had one or
Oh,
maybe the
sorry, and with an Irish whiskey.
oh within Irish whiskey,
Apologies.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So we did a huge release and it was a big risk, but for us, it was bringing in new flavors and the fastest category of whiskey, I suppose spirits internationally are Irish whiskey and it's also tequila, as we all know, with all the celebrities joining in on it. So, as part of our company, we actually own a tequila distillery in Mexico.
Did he freeze
So,
or did I freeze?
I think you're frozen. Relief Hunter. You look good though. You froze on a good image. So you're solid there for a while. I know he's moving. I see him now. But as
No,
part of
yeah, sorry, I jumped in. I was like, did I freeze or did everybody, or did you freeze? And it was me. So
yeah, so, as part of our company, we have Amber Beverage Tequila. So, we have a distillery in the town of Tequila, and we are 100% blue agave tequila distillery. So, we make Ka tequila, Rooster Row tequila. We also sell tequila to other people. So, we also, I strangely found out, we make the Jonas Brothers tequila. Nick Jonas has our tequila, and then we make cenote as well. So we're 100% blue agave. So in terms of tequila, 100% blue agave would be like the single malt of tequila, as if you're gonna kind of pick a word. So we took our single pot still from the previous single pot still we just tried and aged in bourbon for I think this is trying to remember, it's just over six, it's floating around 6 years or 5 years in bourbon, giving that foundation. And then we've transferred over to añejo and extra añejo tequila casks. The only reason it's añejo and extra añejo is because Mexico didn't know which ones were which. Some were añejo, some were extra añejo. They weren't at the kind of minimum of añejo, just over a year. So heavily matured, 100% blue agave, double distilled tequila that's been triple filtered and filtered through Mexican silver. So we put our single pot still into it for just over a year. And I suppose we took it out when it wasn't too dominant on tequila because we could have gone and we have some of these casts. Like we could have gone and done a massive heavy tequila bomb, but to be honest, the whiskey world is not ready for that. It's too niche. It would be too different. So where we've taken this out is one of the best elements of tequila is the nose. The nose of tequila is for me anyway, it's one of the best elements. It's got that earthy, grassy, agave, kind of slightly herbal. You get like a roasted element from it, but a real sweet, kind of green flavor over the top with this like kind of earthy, smoky background. So we wanted this to have the inviting nose of tequila, but the palate of single pot still. We wanted it to retain its Irish character, that spicy, oily, lively character to the whiskey. And just about 13, 14 months, that's where we got that. We managed to balance the kind of nice approachability from the tequila end with the impactful, lively, spicy kind of pot still on the palate to make a really, yeah, different whiskey. So like a lot of our distributors and importers internationally, they've asked me, they're like, can you do a competitive set for this? What whiskey does this compare with? And I kind of go like nothing. Like it's sitting in a new area of flavor for whiskey. It can take a while to kind of understand it as well, because it has flavors that nobody really expects from whiskey. But really, I don't know, do you get that kind of earthy, grassy, and I hate using agave as a tasting note just because I feel like I should do better. But it has that roasted agave over the nose. It just very inviting, but still retains that pot still character. Yeah, it does have like a citrusness to it as well. Blue Weber agave, the only thing. Yeah, so blue is would be considered a single malt. Now you can add in other stuff. You have your mixos. So tequila,
Mixto, yeah.
yeah, you have your two types of tequila. You've got your tequila that you drink like whiskey, and you have your tequila that you call
Cuervo.
your,
No.
yeah, yeah. I have to be careful with that. But you have your tequila that you call your ex on the night, the kind of party club tequila. But no, we use 100% blue agave, and we actually own our tequila fields as well. Sorry, tequila fields, agave fields. So we actually own them. They're guarded by an armed militia as well. So we have guys on pickup trucks with AK-47s driving around our tequila fields, making sure nobody steals them. Because agave
Are
is,
you owned by any cartels? I'm kidding.
when
Sorry.
no, no, uh, wish we were. Make my job a hell of a lot more fun, but but what do you
Sorry,
think of?
sorry to interrupt here, by the way, too. Carrie, I know was on the radio earlier today, so wanted to give Carrie her flowers on a nice talk show there today. So, hi, Carrie. Good to see you as always.
I'm loving your still in the background. I similar as well. I've a small. I have a 2 liter still and I have a 10 liter still, but my 2 liter looks exactly like that. So that's the one I started on. I'm a very bad brewer, So a lot of my beers end up terrible. So I end up throwing them into the still and trying to make liqueurs from it instead. So tequila cask, gonna look like peaches, spice, earthy. Yeah, a lot of I think that was single pot. So yeah, people are getting like the citrusness to it. And what I find really interesting is I do these all over the world, and different countries get different flavors. So depending on what's in their palate, in their cuisine, and kind of what they're used to. And for us, it really helps us all of the tasting notes because ultimately we just make it and then we cross our fingers and we hope to God that everybody likes it. But we get different tasting notes all over the world, and that really helps us kind of understand our product and what we're doing and how we're going to move on to the next step. So the tequila cast, the one that's over in the US at the moment, is batch one. We have a second batch as well, so we are going to put more of it out there. Um, there will be no, we're not going to do a new label that says batch one, batch two. It will just be the same label, keep rolling it out. The reason for that is I don't want to do a new label. It's a nightmare to do all that. So we're going to keep it as same. And from the cast we have currently, the tequila element is a little bit more on the nose because I suppose when we first put it in, we had no idea, we had no comparison, but now we kind of know how they work and how they mature. So we're going to continue the next batch, and then I've put in an order for mezcal casks, ahumado casks as well. So ahumado is mezcal that's legally not allowed to be called mezcal. And then in our range of tequila, we have a smoked pineapple reposado as well. So the smoked pineapple is put in after maturation. So I'm trying to convince Mexico that it's a really good idea to put the pineapple into the cask with the reposado. So just so that I can get smoked pineapple reposado casks to continue this tequila range. But I suppose what Mexico thinks is a good idea and what I think are a good idea are two very, very different things. So fingers crossed that I'm able to do it. Cenote. So we do actually make cenote, but no, we are not going to use. I don't actually know a whole lot about cenote, but we're going to use the Ka cast because Ka tequila for us is some of the highest quality distillate and cast that we get from our distillery. So we're going to always continue with the Ka end. For the smoked pineapple reposado, that's coming from Rooster. Um, but that's a pipe dream of mine to have a smoked pineapple reposado. So fingers crossed that we were able to get Mexico to do that. But I'm hoping.
Get some Pachuga.
Richuga.
Yeah,
See, we don't get in Ireland, we don't get a lot of the tequila. So whenever I'm over in the US, I always try to pick up a couple of bottles because they just don't make it over to Ireland. They make it to Europe, but
sure.
a
We
lot of
don't
them
get a
don't.
lot of Pachuga here anyway. It's like it's not obviously it's a very like nerdy bartender thing right now. I feel
Yeah.
like or agave enthusiast if you will. But I think Pachuga is pretty rad and there's a certain fattiness to it that's quite lovely. But that's just my take. So as it goes. I don't think I like people it grosses people out because they hear about how it's made. If you taste it, you're like, I think it's fantastic. But anyway, neither here nor there. But I'm always an advocate for obscure categories, is me. So Pachuga, if you don't have even if you haven't had it, don't look it up. Just go buy a bottle and see what you think.
Let's drink it. Yeah, it's like you're making me kind of think it's like Malort. If
There's no Malort and Pachuga are not one and the same.
okay.
Malort is bile. They figured out a way to make bile alcoholic and they packaged it. That's my take on Malort. I still end up drinking it every time I'm in Chicago. I hope it didn't offend anybody.
Yeah.
So there you go.
I I wish we sold as much as Malort sells. They
Fair enough.
yeah, they sell a lot. But
They're now you can get it in California now.
oh
I don't know if
nice.
that's well, is it? I don't know if that's gonna like it kind of the part of the lore is you can only get it, it's made in Chicago. You can only get it in at least Illinois, right? Or the area. But Now they're making their ways around, and they have a barrel aged one. But again, here I am promoting obscure spirits again. So
Yeah.
fair enough, David. Absolutely fair.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. So in the lineup, we're going ice wine, Marsala, Japanese cask
Ice
Killican.
wine, Marsala. Yep, 100%. Nailed it.
Brilliant. Oh, someone actually just put it in straight away down the bottom. Brilliant. Thank you. I was
You
scrolling over.
can you can get the tequila cast mostly in control states right now, which doesn't necessarily mean they can ship it to you, but like New Hampshire, Vermont, Michigan, there's a couple other states in there that you'll be able to find it, and Maryland and Virginia and Montgomery County in Maryland. So pretty much most of Baltimore, mostly Baltimore, I should say.
I was reading things of the Chica de Oro. I'm just trying to remember. I'm in the US soon, so really looking forward to like trying some of the tequilas that are over there because yeah, we just don't get them in Ireland because I suppose we have enough Irish whiskey to drink. There's no point. It's like how people don't sell Scotch in Ireland because it's like flogging a dead horse. Same way that we don't sell really a lot of Irish whiskey in Scotland is expensive and we're never going to beat them.
Somehow
Um,
you still have Beefeater in most back bars, though.
yeah. I love those Pernod Ricard deals. Uh, but um, but yeah. So I suppose tequila cask. What's people's thoughts? Like for us, it's been fantastic. It's been a challenge in certain countries trying to get people to the moment they hear the word tequila, they go, no, absolutely not. But once we get them to try it, it's in a whole area of itself in terms of tasting notes and kind of flavors and experiences. And it's opened up a whole world of flavor for us in terms of like the different casks and how we can bring new flavors into whiskey. And for us, it's the packaging is strong as well. It looks really good in the back bar. So we're getting a lot of non-whiskey drinkers drinking it and Scotch drinkers just kind of impulse buying it just because it has that pot still, it has the packaging, and then also has the tequila element. So it's been very, very exciting for us. So something that we're definitely going to continue. So I suppose the next whiskey, the Inniskillen Ice one, I'm going to give a little background.
You're so from Galway. Sorry, you dropped the SH on the in the skillen.
Oh yeah, no, I say I no, yeah, I'm not going to apologize. We say it correctly. So I'm going to go through like the limited editions. The next three whiskeys that we have. These are, I suppose, they're all limited edition, but they're annual releases as well, and the stuff that we've done for a while. And they're all done in very, very small batch. They have the individual bottling number on them as well. There will be variation, there will be kind of changes batch to batch, but I've tried different batches and had a hard time trying to taste the difference between them just because some of the casts that are used are very unique and very different from each other. So our kind of our Inniskillen ice wine, this would be kind of the foundation of this liquid would be our, we say our quintessential copper pop blend. So it would be our single pot still and our single malt blend that we were kind of known for. So in terms of back size, we're looking at about 60% single pot still, 40% single malt. And this is what the copper pot is. It's what the double oak is in terms of mash bill. And it's something that we've gotten very, very famous for. And we're kind of one of the few people in the world who actually do it. There's very few people who do single pot still and single malt blends. There's a good reason for that. It's because we're classified as a blended whiskey because a category for this type of whiskey doesn't exist. So looking at like we get put on the shelf with Jameson or Tullamore Dew or Bushmills, but we don't have any grain in our distillate. It's just single pot still and single malt. don't exist. I was currently last night, I was with the Department of Agriculture in Ireland who do all the approvals and Board BIA who do all the approvals for Irish whiskey and Irish whiskey categories. So I was actually giving out to them being, please, can you make a category for this type of whiskey? Because we're not a blend. We're 100% barley, just in a very, very different place. So what we have done with this, I suppose, is we've taken our copper pot, aged it up further. I think this is floating around 7 years, I think this is, in bourbon. Could be 6, 7 years if I remember right. And we have transferred it over to Inniskillen ice wine cask from Niagara. So this was originally a limited edition and an exclusive for LCBO in Toronto, because one of our biggest markets globally is Toronto. We sell more in Toronto than we do in Ireland. It's a really, really big market, and we could pay a really big agency to tell us why this has kind of happened. Sometimes it's as simple as just putting the product in at the right price with the right flavor at the right time. So it very much, we don't know why it kicked off so much, but it did. So once we're in market for a while, you want to kind of work with like-minded producers, and I saw lots of Irish in Toronto. Yeah, it's not Irish people drinking our product. I wish Irish people drank more of us. We do get good with Irish people, but yes, a lot of them they a lot of them just buy it in the duty free and bring it over. So we want to work with like-minded producers and markets. So people who are doing like similar things, you end up at the trade shows, meeting them, you end up out in dinner, you end up like trying each other's product, and then slowly down the line that ends up shipping casks to each other. So we got our Inniskillen ice wine casks and is aged in them for just over a year. I'd have to go back to the next batch, the last batch. The last batch was a year. Some of them were about 18 months, but some of those casks were second fill casks and some were first fill casks. So it kind of depends on which what the cask and how we're using them. And it just like the tequila cask, this whiskey goes in a completely different direction to any other whiskey out there. So when we release this, I'm pretty sure I'm never going to be the type of person who says we were the first people in the world to do something, because somebody will be like, actually, there was a guy in Germany who did this and just tell me the thing and prove me wrong. So we were one of the first people in the world to mature an ice wine, and it brings a lovely sweetness, almost similar to the single pot still that we had at the first whiskey. It brings a lot of sweetness, a lot of fruitiness in there, grapes obviously, but your peaches, a lot of apples, a lot of pears, but really, really rich fruit. It's not the essence of fruit, it just feels really like thick and kind of syrupy, but the nose is my favorite thing. It's very floral. It's very almost perfume. Lots of floral notes in there coming from the yeast from the ice wine production. A lot of that element carries through into the wood and comes out on the whiskey to bring a really, yeah, I get a huge amount of perfume on this whiskey all the time, like perfume, floral, a lot of sweetness on the nose, but then when you try it, it's got a huge amount of spiciness to it and tannins, but not as much spice as the tequila cask and the single pot still, because this is not a 100% single pot still. So we have that mash bill. It's still got a good amount of like warmth from the single malt character in it. But yeah, perfume is one of the kind of key highlights of this. Really jasmine tea, that's a good one. That is, yeah, that kind of aromatic, aromatic floral perfume note, which seems ironic that I'm talking about all these floral notes, considering I'm in Japan and everything tastes floral over here with huge amounts of perfume. But so we've continued it kind of grew out from Toronto. So initially what started happening was Irish people were picking it up and bringing it across the world. And then we started getting people going over the border, bringing it down to the States. So now It's not an LCBO exclusive now. It's a full release that we release across all markets. Like we have it in Japan, we have it in South Africa, we have it across Europe, in the US, and in Canada still. Batch to batch, there will be variation, but the flavors in it are so strong in terms of fruitiness, in terms of the floral notes, that you don't you don't really you can dive into it, and if you have the previous batch and kind of highlight different kind of notes, but there isn't a massive amount of variation. Part of that as well is got to do with we've been aging in ice wine casks so much now that we kind of know what we're doing. Initially, there was a lot of change just because it was the first time we used them. So the plan with this is we're going to continue doing it, but we're looking at going back and seeing if we can get some of the Cab Franc and do kind of expand and use different varieties of ice wine. Because ice wine is obviously very popular in Canada because they have the climate for it. But there is other countries such as Australia have a variation of ice wine. They have a version I don't quite know. It was explained to me, and I didn't quite understand how does Australia get cold enough to have ice wine, but they have a variation of it. And then we have some of it in Europe as well. They do make a very good Cab Franc actually. That's why we want their casks. Is That's essentially how we choose our casks. We try the liquid and then we go, wow, yeah, we want that. But for us, the Inniskillen Ice Wine, I suppose, in levels of collaboration, like we know the Pedro Jimenez sherry cask producer that we use for single pot still. We know the Marsala cask producer, but we don't name them. We're not allowed to name the exact producer. But Inniskillen, they were so happy with it, and that they're happy for their name to go on our bottles. So going on to a full collaboration, but yeah, very different and kind of sitting just like in tequila cast, sitting in an area of whiskey that you don't typically find. It's You're not going to be able to go into a whiskey bar if you have ice wine and ask the bartender, "Do you have something similar?" There's nothing really there, like maybe the odd single cask, but something that we have a lot of fun with. And again, coming into that, I would say the writer's tears kind of direction that we do with our casts, which are summertime and springtime. Everything we're gonna do is gonna be summertime. It's gonna be springtime. It's going to be not wintry, not like leather jackets and tweed suits and fireplaces and all of what we would expect from whiskey. What do you think of the ice wine? Good. It does. You can't use it as perfume. Don't spray it on yourself for perfume, but it does actually smell really, really good. A huge amount of floral notes on it. So I'm just interested, like out of the range so far, we're three in. Which is the one, like out of single pot still, tequila cask, ice wine, so far, which one is favorite? Oh, people are on mute. I always forget. But
Now, you guys just shout it out. It's okay.
ice wine, ice
I'm
wine.
a huge fan of the tequila cast, but I really like the pot still.
Yeah, it's
I like the ice wine.
Yeah, the tequila, I think. So it's one
tequila.
of the best tequila finishes I've had.
Nice. And is there a lot of tequila finish? I know there's some in like smaller producers. We found the odd one. I know Compass Box have one. Yeah, Compass Box have one. JJ Curry, two stacks. There's been a handful of like scotches. I think we're the biggest in terms of like batch size. We were about 15 cals. So ice wine, tequila. Yeah, I'd say we're floating between ice wine and tequila. For me, I go for the single pot still out of the ring. I absolutely love the tequila cask. It's like everything why I want to be in this industry. Same with ice wine. Really, really different and really sweet, fruity, and floral. But the nice thing about the single pot still is, and even like the copper pot, is whiskey doesn't have to be a research assignment all the time. Of complexity and innovation, sometimes simple is best. And I find myself actually going more and more now to the more simple whiskies like our Irishman Harvest or Copper Pot, just bourbon matured, because they're easy and they're going to be approachable. So, trying to remember which one was the next one. Marsala. Oh, no, this one's actually, it ties into literally what I was just saying. So, tasting on it, thank you. I keep having to scroll up on it. So the Marsala cask, this whiskey was the inspiration for our single pot still. So we, with Riders Tears, we were always doing that.
Uh-oh, looks like he lost his Wi-Fi signal. We'll give him a second and see if he makes it back.
Give it back to him, Gene.
I didn't do it on purpose. I was all prepared to like dig into the next tasting. Well, it took him a hot minute. Hunter should be back in a second too, hopefully. Just in case, I'll text Hunter.
Yeah, this next one's got some serious legs on it too. Smells good. I've had this one before. I liked it.
Mm. Yeah, I was just looking up where you could get this stuff, and there's like the Copper Pot is at Total Wine, and most of the rest of them are at Mission. They have Raiders Tears, Redhead, Double Oak, Lizanara, and Marsala at Mission. Lizanara is the only one that's 100. Everything else is less. So add it to my wish list.
Remedy has quite a few.
Yeah, I haven't checked Remedy yet. It's just my browser is being a putz.
The Marsala cask is available at my store.
Remedy
Yeah.
has the ice wine and the Marsala and the double oak redhead pot still.
Oh, good.
I love Remedy.
Remedy's
Oh,
crazy.
did we lose
I got the
James?
redhead for 60.
did.
Yeah, he kind of just, and he was gone, so it looks like he probably lost his feed.
Okay, gotcha. Where are we at? Sorry for jumping off
We're
for
on
just
the
a quick minute.
Marsala.
Okay, very nice. Did he start
He just started to talk about it when he lost his
Uh,
connection.
Okay, cool. So this is one of our first kind of series in like, again, you look at the Japanese, the Inniskillen. It was kind of in order of release. It was Marsala and then Japanese cask, and then the Inniskillen as far as like how those released. Those are, again, annual releases that we do every year, with the Marsala cask coming from the Florio winery down in actual the town of Marsala, on kind of the northwestern, well, it's on the northern coast of Sicily, but on the western end of it. So um, let me just familiarize myself with this one. Again, as far as just a tasting profile. Let's see. It's quite lovely. So Bernard Walsh, this was like one of his first creations of Walsh whiskey. We always kind of joked amongst ourselves that he had a bit of a sweet tooth. You find that a lot in, again, especially a lot of the cast finishes. There's just a certain amount of kind of sweetness, and James kind of referenced it before when he was talking about, I would say, summery versus more tree flavors. I think less seasonally about whiskey, but that's more just a consumption piece. Um, James just texted me. So Again, I think that's a nice way to kind of reference kind of some of the flavor profiles. With this, I do typically get a little bit of a salinity, and I think that's probably coming from the barrels. Typically just being so close to the sea. And Florio is a really well respected. I mean, a lot of people think of Marsala as cooking wine, but in amongst certain communities, it still is quite, can be a very fine kind of sweeter dessert style wine. Florio is again one of the better producers, I would say, for doing not just your kind of your chicken Marsala wine. You know what I mean? So it's again, a bit more, I would say, going back to the premium kind of characteristics of all the casks we use, that would be kind of seated right in that as well. But again, it's still a sweet wine. You're still going to get some of those kind of sultanas and some of those kind of sweeter notes that you get coming out of Marsala cask. Without being it doesn't go. I use this word a lot with you guys, but it doesn't go that full kind of like Marsala can be on the cheap side towards like the sacramental church wine kind of thing, if you remember that flavor profile. It doesn't. Florio doesn't get more there. It kind of has a bit more. It's not. I would say it's more like a sweet Sardinian wine. I would say than it is like a typical cooking Marsala. So, what do people like about that? Yeah, sticky toffee for sure. Again, going back to the sweet tooth, like Bernard himself has a ton of a bit of sweet tooth, and it's not just with whiskey. It goes back to some of those more desserty profiles. I think is where that kind of really started, and so you do get some of those aspects in there. Again, you look at the cast finishes outside the Mizunara, like the Enniskillen. That is also ice wine is always kind of a sweeter wine at that, albeit at a lower ABV, which is quite a fun thing about that. But yeah, it kind of goes back to some of those, I think for him, some of those more nostalgic, sweeter profile that he likes. He had again, really cool. I've said this probably a couple years ago. I've been searching for the glasses, but I think it was the Kirsch glass. It was my favorite nosing glass that he had, but that was, I think, the first time I tasted Marsala was, it's got this really nice bulb to it, and then a really like kind of tall, thin, more tulip profile. Not a great like glass for actually tasting. But as far as nosing, if you got that bowl like half full and just gave it a swirl, it like shot just so much aroma, just straight through the alcohol, right in the nose. And that was the first time I tasted this wine. This whiskey, and that was actually a very memorable piece from that. So, but he was always tasting barrels, day to day, trying to find that kind of right balance between what you have from the whiskey profile, but also, making sure you're getting some of that cask influence. I think that's one of the rarities about the entire Writer's Tears kind of lineup is you look at the Japanese cask, you look at the Marsala cask, you look at the Enniskillen ice wine cask, and, we've done this actually with Dingle as well. You can really kind of tell a story about what casks actually do to the end product and what they do to the actual whiskey, because all three of those whiskeys start their life the exact same way. And bourbon casks, and then they're finished in the kind of these first fills that are going to add on that extra layer flavor that really differentiate them from each other. Of course, the Japanese cask is at cask strength, so that's going to change the profile entirely as well. But regardless, that's kind of a fun exploration of different casks. We've talked a bit about the interaction between Writer's Tears and the Irishman. We do a lot of age statements. We also do different casts, but it's not quite as whimsical or quite as experiential on that front. Writer's Tears being a bit more of a modern brand, also being a pot still forward brand, we're able to actually, I think, have a little bit more creative license with the whiskeys we're putting out. Tequila cask being a great example of that as well. So. What else? Any kind of questions on that guy? I know again we're running out of time here, so I know we were late on our end, so I'm happy to stay later. But regardless, I don't want to keep people.
So that's
Cool.
fine. I was actually just curious. with the Marsala being partly pot still and partly single malt, is the this one also? I guess I'm looking at which bottle am I looking at? So
No,
this
you're right.
Marsala,
They're all going to
are
be
they
the
are
same.
they that same blend of the pot still and the single malt?
So the jumping off point is copper pot. It's going to be that same blend, kind of taken from there, and then aged in those casks. After it's been married. So they're going to start their life the exact same way.
Thank you.
Hmm.
Lost
Absolutely.
somewhere along the way.
The alcohol is going to vary across the board slightly, maybe 1 or 2 points. But obviously, copper pot being 40% is going to be, a different beast from that standpoint. But once you start into those 46%, double oak, same thing, same 65-35 single pot still the single malt blend. There's no grain whiskey in anything. I think hopefully James covered that already. But that's one thing that make us stand out from other blended Irish whiskeys. And actually, if you go back to 2014, when we were 5 years old at that point as an international brand. We hadn't made it to the US yet, but you guys ever all know Copper Pot is Copper Pot. Originally, that was technically pot still whiskey. So the technical file for what then was pure pot still became single pot still whiskey changed in 2014. Underneath the new regulations, copper pot went from being a single pot still whiskey to a blended Irish whiskey. So our kind of backbone has always been single pot still forward, and that carries through all of, whether they're blends. Or again, we've had to kind of adapt since then to the new technical file, which is why we now have the single pot still and the tequila cask and all that stuff. But our backbone has always been pot still forward at the end of the day, and that comes through in all these kind of blends. But that was a basis for all these different whiskeys. Again, that's kind of changed a little bit with the change of the technical file, trying to be more pot still forward and more premium on that front. Kind of had, again, that's kind of what us down that path. But it really starts at the start with the start of Writer's Tears being a pot still whiskey. So. That was a great question. I don't think I've had that one before. Actually, no, I have. I think on one of these.
Not that
Sorry.
original, but hey, I'm just kind of surprised that, I think Carrie said it earlier, this one really has legs. I mean, like super long.
Yeah. A lot of
Really
times that's
good
attributed to
that.
viscosity.
Yeah.
I mean the viscosity is attributed to alcohol a lot of times, but there's no reason for that to have, again, longer legs. It might actually have to do with a bit more than, like, Marsala is going to be a higher ABV wine, and so that being aged in the cask, maybe it's lending to that viscosity as well. I couldn't speak scientifically about it, but that's kind of what my inkling would be. And just it is, again, being a higher ABV, more fortified wine. It's just going to have a bit more of that kind of
So that,
um,
that makes
thicker,
sense.
stickier texture.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I'm finding it interesting that once it was pointed out with this single pot still, the oily texture and the nature of the palate, I'm actually finding that all the way through now.
For sure.
They
And
all have that same kind of slightly oily, unctuous, silky texture, which I find really quite lovely and not something I've noticed before. And I know this is not the first time I've had Writer's Tears.
sure.
So I'm just like, I don't know if I missed it before, or I was just looking for something else and just never paid attention to it. So I'm just finding that fascinating.
No, look, it's always fun to have revelations and profile and tasting notes as well. Like, I think I've always, sometimes it's one of those aha moments where it sticks with you for the first time. But you have mentioned sticky toffee before and stuff like that. And that can, again, if you're familiar with more like that kind of sticky toffee, some of that oiliness or kind of, again, more textured feel can probably be masking itself as a more familiar taste, flavor profile. So you might have been noticing before. You might not have just been identifying it as oily. I guess would be um, my my inkling on that. Again, I'm not a scientist, even though I have glasses. But I'm that's my kind of best guess on that.
No, that makes
But that's always fun. But one of the reasons I fell in love with this industry was actually just because I have such an affinity for tying, uh, especially I would say aromas but certainly taste to, I would say, more personal experiences. That's kind of how I've had my first aha moments. It was kind of like someone, taught me to kind of retrace my steps as far as how I'm discovering notes. Like it's kind of like, well, what does this remind you of? And it would kind of be like, well, it reminds me of summertime. It's like, well, okay, well, what about summertime? Well, it reminds me of being outside after, my dad had just mowed the lawn or something. And you're like, all right, well, you know, that's either one of two things. It's either, raw gasoline or fresh cut grass. So in that case, it was fresh cut grass, and that was kind of like making those linkages mentally made me have like minor epiphanies of within my own palate, and that's kind of how I've discovered more flavors. And sometimes it takes me a while on the palate to actually identify any individual notes. Sometimes it takes someone else to be like, for me, this is whatever dark chocolate, and it's kind of like, oh, oh yeah. Um, I guess again, that's a minor epiphany. That's how dramatic I am about that. But there you go. So just a little bit of insight into my own uh, exploration or maturation through flavor profiles, if you will. Cool. So that is the Marsala cask, and not to rush along anybody. If nobody's finished, we can take our time here. But um, I do have probably my last pour of Japanese cask here. So we can jump into that. Um, I will get another bottle for sure. But I've been savoring this one for a while. It's one of my favorite whiskeys in kind of the Writer's Tears lineup. I think it is quite unique. I also Mizunara casks are such a unique flavor profile, and I'm a sucker for like kind of those woodsy, earthy kind of notes, and I think I find a lot of that in this whiskey. Not to jump ahead, um, but also like for being a cast strength whiskey, it's a very dangerous profile. It just is so delicious and so tasty. It has a nice texture to it, but it doesn't come across. I would say it's 55%. It may be high 40s, I would say it might kind of play as, but it's certainly, I mean, look, at this point in the night, like anything, nothing's going to taste like 55, I think. But with that being said, I don't think it comes across as overly hot, even, on a fresh palate at that. So, and I think that's one of the beauties of what Bernard has done with the brand and what the different expressions over the years is. To build a really palatable experience front to back, no matter what the expression is, no matter what the ABV is. I mean, writers' tears, people turn their nose up, especially in the whiskey world, at 40%. I think that's a killer, kind of bunch of juice for its price and for what it does and for what it is. And I think just having that more pot still element on that has allowed it to be a lower ABV, because pot still for me a lot of times for American consumers comes across a little bit hotter just because of the spice to the mash bill. But I digress. All that's to say, it's probably my favorite whiskey here, so I am biased, of course, but um, I just think it's quite lovely. It is just a finishing in Mizunara cask. If we left it in there for 7+ years, we'd have no whiskey left. Mizunara casks are notoriously leaky. We constantly have to kind of turn them around to just make sure that we're trying to keep as much liquid in there as possible over the time. Um, but they're beautiful casts. Does everybody know what Mizunara oak is? As far as I think I've gone through it before. Um, but I asked that question, but still going to give the answer whether everybody's knows what it is or not. American oak versus French oak, or well, European oak, I should say, versus Mizunara oak. There are three different species of oak trees. American being the widest grain of all the oak species of the three I called out. Mizunara being the tightest, and European oak, whether that's French or Hungarian or kind of it's the same genus across most of Europe. That's going to be kind of somewhere in between. Um, American oak, you're going to get more of those kind of, that's where a lot of that kind of sweetness comes from, is just because the interaction with that wider grain. part of it with European oak, as far as like it being more spicy, has to do with grain in the wood. They also tend to season their wood outside a little bit longer, which has its own kind of importation. But a lot of times American oak is still seasoned before it's actually cut and coopered. So again, there's some less differences. I would attribute more of the spiciness probably to the grain of the wood. Mizunara oak being the tightest, the finest grain, if any of those. So again, they're notoriously leaky cast, but you're also going to get a certain amount of extraction out of there that is totally different from what you're going to get in European and American oak. And again, that's why it gives it kind of that unique profile. I'm let's see. So I'm just going to the chat. Okay. Again, pine, not a well-respected wood for actually maturing whiskey in, or really any spirit. But again, climate can do anything. And again, if you're growing a tighter grained pine, I'd be curious to see how that comes across. Absolutely. What was I going to say to that end, though? Mizunara oak. It was originally used. Yamazaki's famous for having, always having some I think it's about 6% these days in their model one. But I believe it goes back to, and if someone knows a better story or a more correct story, like correct me if I'm wrong, this is a story I heard. I don't think I've actually fact checked it, but I think it goes back to World War II when people were aging whiskey. Finding oak outside of Japan was hard to import for obvious reasons, and I believe they started aging whiskey in what was available, which would have been Mizunara oak, which is widely, not widely grown, but grown on the island of Japan. Just because it's their local wood. I believe, again, I'd love for someone to have a better story than this, but I believe this is actually the truth is that it does come from kind of that time where they weren't able to import any outside oak, and so they had to use what was available. So you can thank Japanese whiskey for that one. You had Douglas fir, Carrie, in a gin, like pine needles.
I mean, yeah. So Glendalough actually
Yeah,
has
sure.
four seasons gin that you can't get here only in. And I can't remember. I'd have to look at the bottle. I can't remember if it was the autumn or the winter, but one of them, or maybe both of them, had Douglas fir in it, and they're amazing.
Very fun.
No, but what I was saying about the furniture business I was in, so my theory is that
furniture. I read it as future business because I was not.
No,
Sorry.
furniture. Is that, I mean, I've been to Japan this time of year, which is absolutely horrific. The humidity. I mean, you just kind of want to go. Yeah. Anyways, so my guess is their trees don't have that. The Mizunara oak isn't as tight as if you get oak from somewhere that's generally colder. But I mean, I'm theorizing here. I have no idea. I'm not a foresty guy by any chance. But
Well, fair enough. I know that also, Japan has a fair bit of mountains, so maybe depending on where you're getting it from too, you might get, a different profile.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I have no idea where they have the woods, right, to where they cut these trees down from.
Speaking of not furniture business, but future business, at one point in my life, I decided that I might be able to grow forest and harvest oak and become a cooper in a different life. And then I realized that you can't really cooper barrels out of trees anywhere that are about less than 100 years old. And I was like, well, you don't plant a tree for yourself, right? So there you have it. And Mizunara oak is for that record no different. It's usually not able to be planed and coopered until about 100 years old, until it's a tree. I used to think that was unique to it. It's really not. But I think Mizunara oak in particular is actually relatively hardy, but also takes a long time for them to reach maturity at that. And I don't know if climate changes any of that kind of maturation process. I'm sure it does, like with anything. But there you go. I mean, going back to I don't know what you'd call it, but forestry or forest management or whatnot. I am certainly not the expert on that. So there you go. Yeah, no, Mr. David, they are horribly leaky. You lose a lot of whiskey to the floor, for that reason. You could probably put a big bucket below, and maybe people should, but I don't think that's very sanitary. That'd just be for the folks in the distillery, or me. That'd be fine too. Carrie, I saw you come off mute for a second. I don't know if you had a comment there. Shrink rapid. Solera method with this one. I'm actually not sure. That's a good question. I mean, you wouldn't want to put it in a Solera tank, made out of Miznar oak. Then you'd end up with a lot more whiskey on the floor. But as far as if you're talking about marriage, um,
No,
I don't know.
I was jokingly saying instead of a bucket, put another Mizunora cask underneath it, so that
Oh, sure.
it leaks into another Mizunora cask. That's just a constant Solera effect of Mizunora cask. Well,
That sounds pretty fantastic. I'm into that. I would definitely take some of that whiskey, although I bet it'd be egregiously expensive. But I'm here for it.
Yeah, it's a waterfall of Mizunara cask whiskey.
There you go. And I'm sorry, I
Okay,
didn't
so
quite
then-
finish my Marsala cask, so I'm just now getting the Japanese cask.
So the geek in me thought about this, and I guess I was right. It is the high humidity, and that of course stays in the tree. So when you store it, right, it dries out, and it just dries out so much more than any other regular oak. I mean, which then
Sure.
would kind of wonder, well, if you put it in a kiln and a kiln and dry it longer, I don't whether that would help.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, it's always the tricky thing is, especially when you're doing with whiskey barrels, like trying to get them someplace quickly before they dry out and you lose all that kind of character. It probably is doubly more complicated by the fact of a Miznar being what it is. Again, you talk about the oak does not grow straight. It's one of the reasons why can be more expensive to work with because I think it does take, a minimum of 100 years is what most oak trees take to grow straight enough, and long enough to actually be planed into oak staves. I think Mizunara is quite a bit more time on top of that. So, and again, leaky. I didn't realize its name translates to water oak. That's a new bit of knowledge. So, but miso is water, so that makes sense. Um, all right, there you go. Learn something new every day. I'm definitely stealing that too. So, someone mentioned Mizunara staves, heads of American oak. People have done all sorts of cool. It's actually I've seen this more in wine as far as doing different heads in different barrels. There's I think they're called T5 barrels. It's an Australian barrel maker. I can't remember the exact producer, but basically they take, I think, three different types of oak or three different, I don't know if I think they take like Australian oak, American oak, and some French oak, and they season them all different places. And then they basically plane them and kind of piece them together. I think French oak heads and like either American or Australian oak or a combination of the two as far as the staves. And they're probably as far as like if I was in wine for a long time. As far as that goes, it was one of I would say the most unique profile for very heavily, I mean, barrel influenced wine that I've seen. It was actually Spanish wine from Jumilla aged in it. And it was very interesting. Anyway, thanks, David. Appreciate it. Bye. Well, I'm going to enjoy this for a second, but I'm not going to hold you guys back. Jane, I think we are near a cheers, and then I'll kind of dive right into the cast string 2023, if that works.
That would be fabulous. So let me get everybody back on screen on my end here. Everybody wants to raise a glass, come back on camera if you're not here with us. And Hunter, thank you so much for dealing with all the vagaries of the internet world out there. Everybody Smile and say cheers.
Cheers.
I'm sorry we lost James. He was having so much fun and then it kind of died on him.
No, again, and apologies. I would have I tried to hop in as soon as I can. I heard that he was having issues,
Oh,
so
Greg.
appreciate everybody's patience.
Oh my God. I have to redo that because I can't use that picture, although Vadim was going to get a copy. You have to see this. This is hilarious. Oh my gosh. There's always one. Well, if I can actually crop it. Okay. Oh my God. Dude. Let's try that again. Okay. Everybody raise a glass and say cheers.
Turn your other camera on, Jane.
Cheers.
Yeah, because then you could get a picture of the side of my face. Okay, there we go. Let's see if this one's any better. Oh, that's better. Okay, we're good.
All right. Did we do a poll too? Did I miss that already?
I have one. I haven't launched it yet because we haven't done the last one.
That's a great point. We haven't quite finished. So I guess that's a good segue into the last whiskey. Again, it'll be a minute before I join you with that one, but that's all right. I won't stop you, nor do you need to slam, but I'll get started talking about it. So, several of you had the pleasure of kind of kicking this off with Copper Pot while you were patiently waiting for us. Basically, the cast strength every year is our best barrels of Copper Pot any given year. As a result, Bernard goes through, he selects them, he decides what his favorite ones are, and those are held aside and kept at cast strength for each vintage release. The ABV year over year changes slightly. The taste profile should stay relatively consistent if we're doing our job right, but you will kind of get some a few different notes. Really, it's kind of I would say in general variation of a couple different levers you pull every year. Two of those main ones would be there's always going to be some green apple. I think that's pronounced in the Copper Pot. I would say in this one that takes a second, or it doesn't take a back seat to. I would say it has the candied kind of ginger profile that I get. Typically as an very underlying note in Copper Pot becomes much more prominent. Part of that's just the alcohol and the ABV. I think adding to a bit of that kind of ginger spice, but that kind of lovely ginger, candied sweetness is always one of those things. So those are two levels that are relatively balanced. Apples, pears, candied ginger, but also there can on this one, which I don't really get much at all. I would say on Copper Pot is more of like kind of a chocolate chocolatey note. I can get a little bit of, I would say more like a dark chocolate, less bitter and more kind of a sweet dark chocolate. Like think if you stripped a bit more bitterness out of dark chocolate while still having that same kind of richness, I would say you kind of get that. Heinrich, you said, or Henrik, do I say that right? Henrik?
Henrik, yes.
Again, apologies. I think I get it wrong every time. But regardless, yeah, red fruit I think it is probably coming more from the barrel side than it is from the actual spirit side. But I would say you definitely get some underlying tones of especially red flesh fruit across most of the Rider Steers range. I would say that also becomes anything is going to be a bit more pronounced with the cast strength. So but again, vintage to vintage, you'll kind of play with those levers a little bit, and you'll get a varying degree of kind of some of those different notes. But if you're going to average all those flavors out, it probably sticks relatively the same year over year. But the fun part is ABV changes, some of those kind of subtleties change. It is fun to do a bit of a vertical. I've held a few things back. At some point in the future, we might be able to do a vertical of all the cast strengths or something like that, and that'd be kind of a fun experiment in different cast strengths, kind of vintage to vintage as well. They're all about the same age as it goes year over year. So, two. So it might, one of these days we're getting pretty close to me having maybe 6 or 7 of those, maybe next year. Yeah, I got back to 2020 is what I have. Sorry, I just looked at that picture. That's good. Very nice.
Yeah,
Very
it's
nice.
a keeper.
That's solid. We're all right. I mean, look, not to push people along, but are we ready for a poll, or do people need a few more minutes with the whiskey? I'm always curious about this.
Yeah. I'm happy to launch it right now. Give everybody a chance to jump in on it.
So I add a couple of drops of water to the Mizunara cask or the Japanese cask,
Yeah.
and this one. I'm really torn between the Mizunara or the cask strength.
Fair enough. They're quite different as it goes. So sometimes it's hard to do two different comparos when it comes down to it. What I don't think we have another tasting with you guys on the books, but we will get one. Not to kind of jump ahead with anything, but we may be able to snag some Daft Mill for that if we do like a single malt tasting, if people are familiar with that. So that might be coming up in another few months. So I got to figure that out, but stay tuned. I'll always be back. Is a
What's
long
that
story.
smell?
Oh, so for those of you who don't know what I do at Hoteling, I started just in Ireland, but I've slowly done the reverse Britain, and I now handle everything in the UK, Ireland, anything in our portfolio. So also our scotches. Daft Mill is a single malt scotch. It's the only distillery in Fife that exists there. It's two brothers. The one that I know is Francis. I can't remember his brother's name, but Francis is more the distiller. His brothers, they're both actually more of the farmers. They have a small barley farm in Fife. They got a distillery license a number of years ago, and they really do true grain to barrel single malt scotches. It's technically lowland, and they do 2 annual releases, one in the summer and one in the winter, based on the harvest that they get those years. So what they're harvesting on their farm is the only thing that's going into their whiskey, which they do a very small amount of every year. So they're all vintages. Rarely cast strength. We have one of those currently. It's a 2010 vintage, and it's a 12-year-old whiskey.
And it's
That'll be one.
absolutely fucking delicious. Excuse my
Yeah,
language.
it is.
I,
No,
I,
you're
I,
fine. It
I,
is.
I had a sample of it on Tuesday. I'm just kind of, holy shit, this is good.
Yeah, there's like some like nice like lemon tardiness, like they're like on that one. Like their whiskeys are killer. And it's one of those places where I've been on a tour there. It's hard to like they're making whiskey just for themselves. They happen to sell a bit on the side. It's not really we're not it's never going to be anything other than it is currently. We'll probably stateside try to get more on the twice a year release. We got, for just to put it into context, we got about 350 cases total of the cask strength. That was a cask that was only done for the US. Are the rest of the releases that we'll have a little bit more frequently would probably be about 40, maybe 30 cases, 6-pack cases, twice a year kind of thing. So it's a pretty special product. Again, we were lucky enough to get a full cask. That's still out there. I can put you guys in the direction, but we'll cross that bridge when we do an actual tasting on it as well. But that might be something I end up throwing in. I might just do like a single malt series where I can talk a little bit more poetically about the evolution of single malt across the world. That might be a fun thing to do. Even do like a world whiskey single malt kind of evolution sort of thing. I'll probably tie it to just being mostly focused on Irish whiskey myself. Probably the taxation of the British government on malts around the world and how that led to an evolution in whiskey making across the globe. Is how I would title that if I was writing an academic paper, but we're here to drink whiskey. So something I might try to find a way to string that all together in a fun way that hopefully will be interesting. But we'll see kind of what we do, but there'll be something else. If you guys have any ideas, you can also always shoot them my way. I'm open to suggestions for that. So,
Are you trying to be Fanon O'Connor right now?
in another life, maybe. Certainly not this one. But I love that. Thank you, Carrie.
You want to take a guess as to what was voted the favorite of the night?
I mean, Japanese cask is always, especially here, pretty much a crowd favorite, but we'll see. Yeah, there you go. Well, hey,
You're not wrong at all. Yeah, I couldn't vote on either of my instances because both of me are hosting. So I'm like, dang it, I can't vote. Yeah. This is like,
All right.
I was pretty shocked. I'm like, yeah, pretty much.
I mean, you can move mine over to the cast strength because I think, I mean, to me, those were, I mean, a quarter of an inch difference.
Fair enough.
Honestly, they're all so good at, Tony was asking, could he vote for 3? And I'm like, yeah, I totally get that.
Tony, I still do Aaron and lag. Just to comment on what you said. So anything in a portfolio from the UK or Ireland. And right now I also have Drouin, which is Calvados producer in my portfolio as well.
I emailed you because I was in Scotland and I was trying to get to Aaron, and I never heard back.
Oh Jesus, I'm sorry, Tony.
That's okay. I went to Oban.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I made it to Oban
Nice.
and had a good time there.
Well, I promise I'll make it up to you if you're over there again. Apologies. Let's just see here. I'm proving to myself that I suck as best as I can. That was back in January. Let's see here. And then back in April.
I sent you an email. When the hell did I go?
And you were visiting on fair enough. On the 22nd,
end of
you're out
April,
there.
beginning of
Apologies. I gotcha. Fair enough. I did respond to your first note.
Yep.
And then I told you to, and then you said you keep me posted, and I missed the second one. So
That's okay.
apologies. I feel like I was somewhere. If you look at, I'm, as it goes, you can always, you have my permission to bother Jane or Vadim for my personal cell. If I'm on the road, I'm like, which is more frequently now. You can, like, your best way to get a hold of me, especially if it's a week out, shoot me a text. And I'm usually able to help there. You have full permission to do so.
I'm proof of that.
If I don't have your number, I probably won't answer your phone call. But yeah. No. So Carrie, you're right. I had to take a hiatus from Aaron. I didn't have to. I had to trade Aaron in order to get another brand. That brand was Dingle, and I got Aaron back.
Oh, that's okay. That's good. That's good.
So I've kept everything, and I've just been pulling other things off the shelf. So that's right. Collect all the whiskey.
So how many portfolios are you personally responsible for right
now? Portfolios or brands? Like brands is an easier answer.
Brands.
17 right now.
Wow.
It's too many.
To say you're not stretched thin at all, are you?
Right. Again, that's why Tony, apologies. I think I just taken on another 9 around then,
No
which
worries.
is an excuse. But anyways, regardless, yeah, I do any of our kind of Scottish or Irish brands, and I also do Daft Mill, which obviously is Fife in Scotland. I do King's Ginger. I do anything out of IBHL, so Old Pulteney, Bob Blair, Enoch, Speyburn, Old Pulteney, I think I might already mentioned, but also all their Thai spirits, Mekong Praya, Hanky Bannister for good old blended Scotch, but a couple New Zealand products, a vodka and a whiskey down from there from Cardrona, and a Caroon out of Scotland, Scottish gin, and yeah, I'm probably missing a couple right now, and then a really lovely Calvados brand called Christian Drouin out of Normandy as well. So.
You know, I have a bottle of Old Putney. It's a Maritime series,
Sure. But
and
too much one of those?
let me go get the bottle. I'll be right back.
Yeah. In the meantime, I'll wax poetically about Old Pulteney because I'm a big fan of that brand. I like salinity and everything we talked about. You know, no one wants a handful of salt in any of their food. I do a lot of times, even though it's not healthy. But regardless, I'm a sucker for salinity, and it always boosts flavor. I think Old Pulteney has actually a really nice salinity to it. I would say Dingle also has that kind of backbone. That sea air I'm a sucker for. But basically, their maturation warehouse is in Wick. It's the northernmost actual town in Scotland, and their warehouse is kind of on the cliffs over the North Sea, which is fantastic. So um, they're known as a maritime malt because of that. We've done some whiskey pairings with oysters before, just because it does have such a high level of salinity. Is that the 25-year-old? You bastard. That's lovely.
I mean, we had it at the tasting, and that to me, honestly, when people talk about a life-changing bottle, that was it for me. You know, a lot of them, I was just kind of, oh, this is good, whatever, you know. And then we got this one. I'm just kind of like, okay, I need to own this.
And now you do.
Well,
and we appreciate you.
I found one in Europe that didn't cost as much as they cost here. So
Fair.
and then
Fair
I just
play.
picked this thing up.
Oh shit. Oh yeah. Have you cracked it yet?
I've had it, which is why I had to run and go buy one.
Well, fair enough. Have you ever, so this is a weird one. You ever had the Huddart from Old Pulteney? Was that one that you guys did?
Oh, yes.
Yes, that was good.
And,
Actually, so that's like the cheapest whiskey in the bunch, and like I'll drink it by the bucket. Like for me that it's like a smoked sea salt caramel. And
no, did you hear about the deal K&L had on the Huddart?
No.
You guys are digressing from writer's tears.
I know.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I'm so sorry. By the way, I did that, and that's my fault.
That's okay.
no.
I was gonna say if we're done talking about writer's tears, I'll kill the video and then we can.
Oh yeah, do that. Kill the video.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
So we'll
got-
just call.
Buddy, yeah,
Well,
sorry,
James.
James.
No, I was just saying, I was just jumping in to say apologies. My internet here, I have no idea. I keep getting kicked out, and then I can't rejoin on the hotel registration thing for whatever reason. You think Japan.
The wires are getting stuck in old Mizunara trees, I think.
I was actually for the Mizunara cask. I will say I was actually I didn't stop, but I'm gonna stop there tomorrow. I was at Mount Fuji, passing by on the train yesterday, so I'm gonna stop by tomorrow. But that is actually where our Mizunara casks are from. So it was nice looking across
That's
and going, oh, I hope they're coming from those trees over there. But yeah, I just wanted to apologize for being kicked off. I think I was mid-sentence,
Yeah,
and I can't
pretty
remember
much.
what sentence I was finishing. But
Something about Marsala.
yeah,
Yeah, it happens. No worries at all. Thank you so much for joining us and coming back and saying howdy. It was
no, it's great.
pleasure to
And
have
look,
you.
yeah, no, I'm always happy to do these, and thanks to Hunter and you guys as well, and even just information and feedback. I'm just curious, Ida, like, what was your favorite of the whole all of the
Look, take a
whiskeys?
look at the chat, buddy.
I can't see
We
it.
got the
Here,
oh shit.
I'll share it again. There you go.
Oh, nice, nice. Oh, so it's Japanese cask. Really
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah,
Yeah,
It
neither
just
one of me got to vote, so there's
Every time I do the Japanese cask, it wins every time.
Nice, nice. No, that's great to see. That's really good to see. And yeah, we'll continue to do the Mizunara cask, albeit the casks are bloody expensive, but it's very good. Our
Yes.
supplier, we're getting good quality casks. It just aromatic. Oh, you're
James,
empty. We need to get another one over.
don't
Hunter,
worry.
how much is that one? MSRP.
About a buck 30.
Okay.
Anything new and exciting in the
Somewhere in that
pipeline?
range.
So we have a few things in the pipeline. We've got a Gruit stout cask that is out. That's a medieval
James
type
sent
of
me a
beer.
bottle of that. Thank you, James.
No, bro, no, it's very special. And we only did 700 bottles of it. So Dick Max in Dingle, if you look up Dick Max in Dingle, they
Carrie's been
uh
there.
I love Dick
yeah.
Max.
Oh, it's
And
fantastic.
Foxy John's. Foxy John's is good too. We talked about both those on the radio today.
It's a really good part of the world, and like I love going down there as well. Like if I'm ever driving down for an event down there, I always make sure I stay. Even if I don't need to stay, I'll always make sure I stay so I can go to in and around the pubs there because it's a great part of the world. And with
There's a
Dingle,
pub for every 10 people in Dingle.
oh yeah. Jesus Christ, there is. So we do a collab with them. So we have the Dick Max collab, Gruit Stout, really obscure, strange whiskey. But that's only available through them. I'm not too sure if they ship to the States. They kind of do whatever they want down there. So who knows? But then we have a few things cast in order, mainly on the Mezcal Ahumado, looking at expanding that. And we're talking to a few breweries as well, looking at kind of some more obscure beer releases. But then on the Irishman range, we're talking to a few wineries as well to see about doing some really good quality wine finishes to follow on from our legacy. So nothing major this year. A lot of it would be probably 2026, 2027. It's like the big release that we do. And we have the 2025 cast strength as well, which is just being bold. But
With that, sorry to jump in. I do have to jump, everybody. But I just want to say thanks, James. Appreciate you jumping back on. Everybody, you're in great hands. But appreciate you all, and I will see you all soon, I'm sure. Cheers, everybody.
see you,
Bye
Hunter.
bye.
Thanks, Hunter.
And I was literally about to probably say what Hunter was about to say as well is I'm gonna have to go and jump and go get my lunch because I am very, very hungry and it is 1 o'clock in the afternoon in Japan at the moment. But yeah, no, really appreciate it. I love doing these tastings simply because it's the feedback, it's the information, and just kind of like hearing people's opinions, seeing how the product that we make is being received is second to none. Like we can look at the sales and go like, yeah, we're selling more, or most of the time selling less. But it's events like this with people that we really, really appreciate across the world. So yeah, thank you very much for having me, and apologies for my terrible. You think Japan would be, well, my hotel anyway would be technological, but it doesn't seem so because the power
Oh,
keeps skipping as well. So
yeah, not at all. Thank
yeah.
you so much for jumping in and joining us, James. We seriously appreciate your time. And thank you. We'll let you go, and hopefully we can see you again at some point.
No, brilliant, brilliant. Yeah, I'll be over for Tales of the Cocktail in New Orleans. Is the my next US trip, but I'll maybe try and do a few things around there. I haven't gotten this calendar together, but everything I do, we put it up on the social media and everything, so we'll see the events.
Awesome.
But yeah,
James,
thanks very. Yep.
we're gonna go and we're gonna be shooting two podcasts there, my podcast and my client's podcast. So I want to get your info from Hunter so we can talk about getting you on there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, if Hunter will be able to just reach out to him and we can link us in directly
Great.
and we can get something in the calendar.
Will you be there on the Wednesday and the Thursday?
Probably yeah, the Wednesday. I'll probably yeah, I usually come like 2 days before simply because getting to the US is an
Yeah.
ordeal
Yeah.
coming over from Ireland. So
Great.
yeah. But yeah, no, yeah, reach out to Hunter and he can fire on my details and we get something in the calendar. So
Awesome. And if
Brilliant.
you're
Look,
in Southern California, let us know. We'd love to host you someplace.
no, it'd be brilliant. Yeah, I will. I always, anytime I'm in there, Hunter, yeah, will put me to work and fill up my calendar.
He's a taskmaster.
Oh, he's brilliant. He's brilliant. I love Hunter.
There you go. All right.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you.
On, Chip. See ya.
Good night. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.